Hi, my name is Angela and I'm a Canadian exchange student in Taiwan. After the semester ended, my friends and I went island hopping after our Kenting beach vacation, and this is the vlog of the next part of our trip in Orchid Island. This story picks up right from the last video in Kenting, where we picked up our ferry tickets which we had pre-purchased from klook.com. Our purchase included 3 ferry rides which took us from Kenting to Orchid Island to Green Island, and finally Green Island to Taidong for 2,700 NTD altogether. To Orchid Island, it was a 2-hour ferry ride, and I'm so glad I fell asleep for most of it because, according to my friends, a lot of people were seasick during the journey. As soon as we arrived and got off the boat, we walked about 10 minutes to our hostel called the Dodo Wu Homestay, which was like a capsule-style hotel. When we checked in, they offered to rent us scooters, but when we went to go pick them up, the scooter rental guy refused to rent them to us because we didn't have international licenses, so we had to walk around the area and look for someone else who was willing to rent to us, and finally found a guy who rented 2 scooters to us for 500 NTD per day. We got our scooters and drove in the clockwise direction around the island, just enjoying the absolutely stunning views and stopping a few times along the way. We explored a random cave and found a busy snorkeling spot before we grabbed some dinner at a restaurant in the Irareli village. After enjoying our delicious meal of fish and fried rice, we walked around the area and found the traditional fishing canoes that Orchid Island is famous for. Then we head back to our hostel for the night, and the next morning we head down the street to 7-Eleven to grab some food before we started our journey around the island in the counterclockwise direction. Along the way, we drove by a bunch of villages and stopped at a few viewpoints to take in the incredible sight. One spot that our scooter rental guy recommended was the green Grasslands, which he said was the best place to watch the sunset. We were pretty surprised that there were so few tourists on the island with us, and it was largely empty even though it was the beginning of summer. I was also surprised by the fact that almost all of the Taiwanese people I met on exchange had never been to Orchid Island before. Anyways, we walked around the grasslands and took in the rich colors of the sea and the mountains before continuing on our scooters. Since it was a crazy hot summer day, our next stop was the cold springs. After we parked our scooters, we had to get past a large herd of goats in our way before getting to the springs. This was definitely my favorite activity while in Orchid Island because it was just so refreshing to swim around in the cold water under the hot afternoon sun for a few hours. Finally, after a relaxing afternoon in the cold springs, we jumped back on our scooters and continued along the road until we found a nice village to stop for some food. Since we were super thirsty, we found a drink stand in the street market that served mojitos and lemonade. One of my friends got a mojito, and then my other friend and I got the honey lemonade, which they added butterfly pea tea to make it extra pretty and delicious. We also got some scallion pancakes from this stall, and then we enjoyed our food and drinks by the water where we watched people ride on the traditional fishing canoes. As the sun began to go down, we got back on our scooters and continued driving while looking for a nice spot to enjoy the sunset. After a pretty long drive, we finally decided to watch the sunset from Tank Rock, so we laid out our blankets and listened to French music while the sun went down. As we were leaving, we even saw a whole herd of probably 20 goats that had somehow climbed up the side of Tank Rock. Afterwards, we drove back to our hostel in the dark and went to the barbecue restaurant right next door where we had seen so many people dining the night before. Since they were full when we got there, we made a reservation for around an hour later, so we just showered at our hostel, and then at 8 p.m. we got a table upstairs and they set up the barbecue for us. It was 380 or 390 NTD per person for all you can eat, so we ordered a whole bunch of food including meat, fish, and veggies, and we cooked and ate for 2 hours until all 3 of us were way too full. The next morning we hopped on our scooters and rode towards the Lanyu Lighthouse, where you have to zigzag up the mountain. The lighthouse was underwhelming because you can't actually go near it, so we head to the other attraction that we had passed by on the way. We followed some people down the trail, which takes you to a beautiful lookout point. Even though the ride up and down the mountain are kind of scary, the views from the top are definitely worth it. Then we drove back down the mountain and went to eat shaved ice. As you can see from the menu, this place offers a whole bunch of different flavors, and we ended up trying 3 different ones. We got mango, Thai milk tea with tapioca balls, and matcha red bean, which were all delicious, but my favorite had to be the Thai milk tea with tapioca. We enjoyed our shaved ices and chatted with some people we had met from our hostel before we hopped back on our scooters and rode towards the old lighthouse, which was just next to the pier. After watching some random people jump into the water, we walked up the stairs to see the little lighthouse and enjoyed the beautiful views around us from the top. Then we hopped back on our scooters, and since we still had some time left before our next ferry ride to Green Island, we rode to the snorkeling area we had seen on our first day. After staying there for around an hour, we rode back to the scooter rental place to return our scooters, and then we had to run to the hostel to grab our luggage and run to the pier because we almost missed our ferry. But that was the end of our 3-day trip to Orchid Island, also known as Lanyu. I'll try to list all of the places that I mentioned in the description box below, and stay tuned for the vlogs from the next parts of this vacation where we went to Green Island and Taiwan. Thanks for watching!